In the midst of grappling with the profound loss of my mother, my world was further shaken by William's unexpected announcement. He approached me with an unsettling smile, declaring his intent to leave our shared home to his parents if I disagreed with proceeding with a divorce. His words struck me like a lightning bolt, revealing a stark truth. My feelings for him had completely evaporated, replaced by a growing resentment towards William and his family. With a cold indifference, I retorted, hinting at regret he might face, only to be dismissed by his carefree laughter. He confidently handed me the divorce papers, his grin never fading. It was in that moment I vowed to stand my ground, refusing to be belittled or underestimated by him any longer. With a determined spirit, I accepted the papers and made my exit, heading straight to my uncle's home for refuge. The following day, with my uncle's support, I confronted my now former in-laws at their grand estate. My sudden absence had sparked confusion, with accusations of neglecting my supposed duties as a housekeeper, a role they mistakenly believed still bound me. I corrected them with finality. I was no longer William's wife, having finalized our divorce. William was visibly shocked, silenced by the reality of our severed ties. My uncle, a seasoned lawyer, interjected to address legal matters, underlining the seriousness of the situation. My story begins as Sarah Brown, a 33-year-old woman who had climbed the corporate ladder to a managerial position, thanks to the unwavering determination instilled in me by my mother. Raised by a single mother who built a business empire from the ground up, I was taught the value of hard work and the importance of financial independence. My mother's legacy was not just her business, but her belief in living a fulfilling life, a mantra she repeated as a tribute to both herself and my late father. Life had its demands, but my family's support, especially from my uncle, eased the burdens. Our household ethos was self-reliance, pushing me to pursue my goals diligently. This drive led me to meet William at work, whose initial charm and zeal won me over, leading to marriage. However, our relationship, devoid of children, had settled into a routine existence. One particularly late work night highlighted the growing rift between us. Returning home exhausted, I was met not with understanding or comfort, but with William's impatient demand for dinner. This incident, among others, painted a clear picture of our deteriorating relationship, culminating in the pivotal moment of our divorce. Through these trials, my resolve has only strengthened, guided by the lessons of my mother and supported by my family. The journey from grief to asserting my independence has been challenging, but essential in rediscovering my worth and the direction of my life. Post-William. After a long day at work, I arrived home to find William sprawled on the couch, engrossed in his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. Despite my earlier heads-up about coming home late and suggesting he dine without me, his response was as if hearing it for the first time. "Oh, did you say that?" he remarked casually, ignoring my efforts to remind him. His laid-back attitude irked me, especially when he lazily insisted I hurry up and prepare dinner for him. William's attitude towards work and home responsibilities has always been lackluster. Unlike me, who has climbed the corporate ladder to secure a managerial position, William seems content with his minimal-effort job, showing little ambition to advance. This disparity in our professional lives has often led me to wish he'd contribute more at home. Yet my requests fall on deaf ears as chores remain untouched and his personal messes clutter our living spaces. The early days of our marriage painted a different picture, with William showing more care and actively participating in household duties. However, as time passed, his enthusiasm waned, revealing a stark contrast to the man I married. Tensions escalated when he insensitively hinted at our childlessness, attributing the blame solely to me, despite the fact that both of us faced challenges in this regard. His cruel words stemmed from a place of insecurity and jealousy over my career success, projecting his frustrations onto me. Our argument that evening left a bitter taste, with William retreating to bed in a huff, skipping dinner. The silence of the night was filled with my reflections on our strained relationship, as I heated up some food alone. The next day, my rare day off, I woke up to find William absent, likely visiting his parents, a thought that allowed me some peace. I decided to spend my day visiting my mother in the hospital, who had been overworking herself to the point of collapse. Despite her condition, she remained dedicated, even from her hospital bed. Our conversation was a welcome distraction from my own troubles, focusing on lighter topics like the scenic view outside her office. However, The tranquility was short-lived as a message from my mother-in-law popped up, her tone accusatory when I returned her call. She lambasted me for neglecting William, prioritizing my mother over him. Her words were sharp, tinged with the expectation that as a wife, my career and personal achievements should not overshadow my duties to William. This interaction was a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges I faced, not just in my marriage, but within the dynamics of our extended family. The expectations placed on me, coupled with the disregard for my own well-being and aspirations, highlighted the deep-seated issues that needed addressing. My journey, marked by professional success and personal struggles, continues to be a balancing act of fulfilling expectations and seeking my own happiness amidst the complexities of relationships and societal norms. As I ended the call with my mother-in-law, her harsh words about our inability to have children and her wish for me to prioritize William over everything else lingered in my mind. She never seemed to understand the importance of letting her adult son make his own decisions. It was disheartening to see William consistently seeking refuge behind his parents, a behavior I found quite sad. Brushing aside the frustration, I noticed my uncle approaching. He had come to visit my mother as well, but our meeting was interrupted by the introduction of a man who stood behind him. My uncle mentioned he might be significant to my future career and introduced us. "This is Ryan Richard," he said, as we exchanged business cards. After Ryan headed into the hospital on my uncle's instruction, I shared the gist of my phone conversation with my uncle, expressing my dismay over William's lack of responsibility and his mother's unwarranted accusations. My uncle's concern deepened as I recounted the ordeal, advising me not to burden my mother with these worries. Our conversation was cut short by a sudden emergency. By the time I made it back to the hospital, my mother had unexpectedly passed away. The shock left me numb, struggling to process the reality of her absence. My uncle, ever supportive, stepped in to handle the funeral arrangements. Amidst our mourning, I overheard a conversation that jolted me back to reality. William, and his parents, seemingly oblivious to the somberness of the occasion, were speculating about the inheritance left by my mother, who had been a successful CEO. Their insensitive remarks about moving on from their modest living conditions, assuming the inheritance would naturally come to them, were deeply upsetting. Furious at their audacity, I demanded they leave. My uncle promptly intervened, ensuring they were escorted out amidst their protests and insults. He assured me of his support, offering to help me sever ties with William and his family if I chose to. In the aftermath, returning to the home I shared with William was unthinkable. Instead, I took refuge in the mansion inherited from my mother. This house, lovingly designed by her, was filled with cherished memories. It was here we planted flowers together, played hide-and-seek, and shared precious moments despite her busy schedule. The mansion, now mine, was a testament to her love and the life we shared. It offered me solace as I contemplated my next steps, surrounded by the legacy of a woman who taught me the value of independence and strength. When my mother was still with us, she often spoke about the significance of independence and making my own choices. Now, facing a tumultuous chapter in my life, her words echoed in my mind, urging me to stand strong. It was during these reflections that the doorbell's chimey broke my train of thought, expecting it might be my uncle, who had a habit of dropping by unexpectedly ever since I was young. I opened the door without hesitation. To my astonishment, William, accompanied by his parents, greeted me with an air of entitlement, marveling at the grandeur of the mansion. Without invitation, they barged in, carrying moving boxes, as if claiming the place as their own. William boldly declared the mansion now belonged to his parents, leaving me speechless. My heart sank at the assertion that my mother's legacy, her house, was supposedly transferred to William's parents. The very idea seemed ludicrous and unfounded. William claimed a legal maneuver had been made to change the ownership, a revelation that struck me as both outrageous and deeply hurtful. Faced with their audacity, my sorrow transformed into seething anger. William, mistaking my silence for compliance, presented me with divorce papers, smugly suggesting that if I opposed their claim, our marriage would end. The realization hit me hard. I no longer harbored any affection for him. Instead, a fierce determination took root, promising myself that William would regret underestimating me. With the divorce papers in hand, I left for my uncle's house, my resolve never stronger. My uncle, a lawyer by profession, was appalled at the illegalities and moral bankruptcy of their actions. He assured me of his full support, not just in protecting my mother's estate, but also in standing by my side through the forthcoming legal battle. The loss of my mother had initially plunged me into despair, but the egregious actions of William and his parents had ignited a fire within me. I refused to let such injustice go unchallenged. Together with my uncle, we confronted William and his family at the mansion. William was visibly shaken as I declared our divorce, his confusion evident. The situation escalated as my in-laws attempted to intervene, only to be met with the firm resolve of my uncle. He clarified the legal stance, protecting my rights and my mother's legacy from their unscrupulous grasp. This confrontation marked a turning point, not just in reclaiming what was rightfully mine, but also in severing ties with a family that had shown no respect for me or my mother's memory. It was a poignant reminder of my mother's teachings, to live a life of dignity, self-respect, and independence. With my uncle's unwavering support, I embarked on a journey to ensure justice was served, determined to honor my mother's legacy and forge a path forward on my own terms. As I stood in the heart of the mansion that belonged to my mother, I asserted my rightful ownership with unwavering conviction. The very idea that William and his parents could alter the property's ownership without my consent was not only audacious but blatantly illegal. William attempted to justify their actions by mentioning a legal clerk who supposedly managed the paperwork, a claim that reeked of forgery. Facing William, who looked at me with a mixture of defiance and realization, I made it clear that any attempts to undermine my rights would not be tolerated. His feeble attempt to accuse me of acting independently fell flat, especially since his actions were the ones teetering on illegality. His silence following my rebuttal was telling. It was evident he lacked the courage to confront the truth of his own inadequacies. William, in a desperate bid to hurt me, brought up my fertility challenges. Yet, the irony was palpable. While I faced obstacles, there remained hope for me through medical treatments, a hope that William, due to his own circumstances, did not share. This fact highlighted the futility of his attempt to belittle me, especially when his own situation was considerably more definitive in its limitations. The confrontation reached its peak when I reminded William of the significance of the memories I held with my mother in this house. Overwhelmed by the weight of his actions and words, William could only lower his head in surrender. My uncle, meanwhile, had managed to silence William's parents, making it clear that their presence was no longer welcome and that they should brace themselves for the consequences of their audacity. Their attempt to infringe upon a space filled with cherished memories only to face our united front was a mistake they would come to regret deeply. It was during this tumultuous time that I learned of my mother's foresight. She had sensed the brewing storm in my life and had enlisted my uncle's support to protect me, knowing well that I would hesitate to burden her with my woes. Further investigations unveiled William and his family's premature celebrations over claiming my inheritance upon my mother's passing. However, their schemes crumbled with the revelation of my mother's will, meticulously prepared and entrusted to Ryan, a trusted friend introduced by my uncle. The will unequivocally stated that everything she owned was left to me, granting me full autonomy over the mansion and her estate. William's demeanor changed drastically as the reality of his situation dawned on him. In a last-ditch effort, he pleaded for my mercy, revealing the extent of his recklessness. His confession laid bare the truth of his financial ruin, brought on by extravagant nights out and irresponsible spending, which led him to sell both our home and his parents' house to cover his debts. His plea fell on deaf ears. The revelation of his actions, compounded by the betrayal of attempting to usurp my inheritance, solidified my resolve. William's problems were of his own making, a bitter harvest of the seeds he had sown. As I faced the aftermath of his deceit, it became clear that the path forward was one I would walk without him. Safeguarded by the love and foresight of my mother, and supported by the unwavering loyalty of my uncle. Once married to William, I found myself at a crossroads, no longer his partner, but a woman forced to confront betrayal. William faced a stark choice: deal with the legal repercussions of his actions, or attempt the impossible task of repurchasing the mansion for $5 million, a sum far beyond his reach, after liquidating assets to barely cover his debts. As I regained control of the mansion, I discovered the theft of personal keepsakes, an act William's parents tried to dismiss by blaming on their desire to sell unwanted items. Their audacity provided even more fodder for legal action against them. In the fallout, William and his family found themselves drowning in financial ruin, exacerbated by my decision to remove William from the company, now under my leadership. The drama escalated when William's father, blinded by entitlement, demanded retraction and compensation at the company, only to be escorted away by the police. My uncle and I could only look on with wry amusement at the spectacle of their downfall. The revelation that William's cousin, a legal clerk, had orchestrated the fraudulent transfer of the mansion's ownership further tangled the web of deceit. His actions, driven by familial loyalty and personal vendetta, ultimately led to his professional and social ostracization. The ripple effect of his malice left William's family isolated and embroiled in internal conflict, a situation from which I chose to detach myself entirely. With my uncle's unwavering support, I made the difficult decision to sell the mansion. Though it was a place of cherished memories with my mother, the events had sullied its significance, and its vastness felt overwhelming for a single occupant. The sale was swift, with the mansion finding a new owner seeking tranquility in their twilight years. This decision marked the end of a chapter, allowing me to bid farewell to the past and start anew, focusing on my future and career. In the midst of these changes, Ryan, who had been instrumental in uncovering the truth and defending my interests, reached out. Grateful for his support and curious about what he had to say, I agreed to meet him. Over coffee, Ryan expressed his desire to support me, not just as a professional ally, but as someone who genuinely cared for my well-being. His sincere approach took me by surprise, hinting at the possibility of new beginnings and unexpected allies in the aftermath of turmoil. After the tumult with William settled, Ryan stepped forward with an unexpected confession of his feelings for me. "I like you, Sarah," he admitted, a hint of nervousness in his voice. He was aware of the recent chaos in my life and didn't expect an immediate response, instead asking me to consider his feelings once everything calmed down. Handing me his personal contact details, he looked earnest, his face flushed with sincerity. Until that moment, I hadn't thought of him romantically, but seeing his genuine demeanor, I found myself contemplating the possibility of starting anew. Not long after, I heard that my former in-laws attempted a break-in at the mansion, mistakenly believing I was still the owner. Their efforts were thwarted by the new owner's security measures, leading to their arrest given their prior misdemeanors. This incident underscored their relentless but futile attempts to disrupt my peace. Amidst this, William reached out, unrepentantly asking for help with his financial woes, having somehow avoided the legal consequences that befell his parents. His plea was met with my firm refusal. Once married, yes, but his continued recklessness only affirmed my decision to move on. I expressed my disappointment in myself for not seeing his true nature sooner, and firmly ended the conversation, this time making sure to block his number. With that chapter firmly closed, I turned a new leaf with Ryan. His proposal, and my acceptance, marked the beginning of a sincere and honest relationship. Aware of my fertility challenges and past, Ryan's unwavering support and understanding assured me of our potential to build a fulfilling life together, redefining the essence of family beyond biological ties. My uncle, who had always been a steadfast supporter, shared in our happiness. His support was rooted in a promise made to my late father, his best friend, to always look out for me and my mother. This revelation deepened my appreciation for his presence in my life, seeing him not just as an uncle but as a father figure. Embracing this new chapter, Ryan and I decided to expand our family through adoption, a decision fully supported by my uncle. The joy of welcoming a child into our lives brought a new sense of purpose and fulfillment, reinforcing my commitment to pass on the values taught by my mother and exemplified by Ryan and my uncle. Our life together, enriched by love and shared values, prepared us for any challenges the future might hold. With a firm belief in the strength of our family, I vowed to teach our child the importance of resilience, the value of genuine connections, and the beauty of choosing kindness and understanding above all.